Good morning once again. You are watching Sunrise at Sea, and you're right in time for Twitter Jabs, part 2, where we get to dig in. We take a deep dive. And the topic this morning is about the reopening of schools on the 10th of January. So, Sarah, what do you think about this? Do you think we are ready?
No, we're not.
Why not?
And I have expressed this many times because a lot should have been done. By the time the president made his presidential address on 31st December, the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health and Ministry of Works in collaboration should
Yes.
have come out with a detailed plan of how the schools were going to reopen. Another thing, because I'm a parent and I have a child that goes to school, and one thing that I would have really appreciated is if the government had, put out a list of schools that were going to reopen. They
Yes.
should have done their research, some groundwork to check on the number of schools that are going to reopen and, list them in the newspapers, just like how they, go out to list the schools that have participated and did UNEB or PLE and whatnot, and, go down to list every child's, or pupil's grades. They should have done the same thing with the schools, so that because a number of schools are closed and will not reopen. A number of parents want to change their children's schools, to different schools, but now we're all running around with like headless chicken because we don't know which school is reopening, what is the school fees structure. So it would have been really helpful if the government did put out a list of schools that were set to reopen in January.
I totally agree, because just giving the districts, Kampala, Mpigi, Mkono, I think narrowing it down would have helped mitigate the traffic in the metropolitan area.
Exactly.
Well, that is supposed to be done, as schools reopen, but it just leaves too much to be desired, and not in a good way.
Exactly, because that would have also helped us with knowing how many teachers are actually returning to the profession.
Exactly.
Because COVID-19 did have a huge impact on the education sector, and not a number of teachers will report, but we don't know. We won't know until the schools open. So a lot of groundwork was not done, and that would have helped ease this, transition into the opening of schools. Right now, they have just opened the schools, and they have also given us a staggered plan, as they call it in courts. That is also not really helpful.
I think so. It's like they're just opening the floodgates, and we are just going to see what's going to happen.
Exactly.
There in the middle. And then I'm also thinking of children, because children as well have not been going to school. Some have been going to school online for the parents who can afford it.
Yes.
Of course. So there's like a catch-22, because some parents want their kids to be taken to the next class, while others, their kids can't go to the next class
because they have not been studying.
Because they have not been studying, because they have not had the resources and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are schools going to do? Are they going to take some to the next class? Are they not going to take them? I'm just wondering what's going to happen there. Like the Ministry of Education, how are they going to handle that with schools and everything?
Well, they did say that everybody will be moved or promoted to the next class, but then that is going to just cause a huge lap in the classroom, because a number of children are returning to the classroom traumatized. Some have experienced the effects of COVID-19 firsthand, while others have been on vacation. You understand? So you're going to have children with, different sides of the coin mentality.
Yeah.
So I think also children, at least for the first, I would suggest that at least the children be taken through refresher courses, learning, allowing them to settle back into the school environment, and also in the school system, and also counseling. Counseling is very important, not only just for the teachers, but also the children. Because some children are returning to class, like I said, with already a mature mindset. And there are those that have been working. So how are you going to convince a child that has been that has been making their own shillings that they need to sit in class? Yeah. So we really have so many questions, and we need answers to these things. So we are not ready to open up the schools. However, it is a step in the right direction that the schools, open. Perhaps we'll figure it out as we go on.
I guess we will. Well, we do have a guest who is going to be telling us how feasible this plan is of the government. We'll see you in a bit. Don't blink. Welcome back from that short break, and in studio we are joined by Mr. Welunga Yusuf, President of the Uganda National Students Association. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, please. I'm okay.
It's good to have you in.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we have a lot to ask, don't we, Sarah?
We have questions.
Questions.
We have questions.
Yes, please.
First of all, like, we would like to know, because kids are going back to school, and right before we went on the break, we were saying, like, it's like the floodgates are just going to open, yeah? How many teachers do we have? Will they be teaching in schools? Because some jumped ship, they took on other careers, other teachers are not vaccinated, so they can't teach. So how many teachers are we looking at? Won't schools be understaffed as kids go back to school?
Well, first and foremost, I thank the ministry and the president for reopening the institution. It is our constituency, the education sector, which was highly hit by these two lockdowns. We appreciate most of our fellow students, females who become mothers at a very tender age, even some males. They have decided to go into some business ventures and abandon the education.
Yeah.
So it was greatly affecting us. And you know, when the education sector is affected, the whole economy is affected, the whole generation is affected,
Yes.
and the development of the country is at stake. So it was timely. I really thank the president and the minister for coming up with this idea of reopening the institutions. Whereas we shall have challenges, because the other time you saw what is happening in Jinja, that most of the schools in Busoga may not open. Not only in Busoga, but there are schools. Recently I was watching on NTV, Kaungezi, someone turned his business into a hotel.
Yeah.
You see, so we are going to have some challenges, but it was needed to have these schools open. There are some teachers who have been vaccinated, though there are those who have not been vaccinated, and there are those who have abandoned the education sector.
Yeah.
They have gone into other business ventures. Of course, it was good to open. Then we studied the environment. We studied the situation. How many teachers have gone out of the institutions, and we can look for a solution to this, because we have teachers who have graduated, they are home seated. It will be easier for us, because I'm sure some of these ones who have graduated are home seated, can as well, maybe some have been already vaccinated, can step in, and we fix, we fill up this gap. Maybe also I think, I request the Ministry of Health can as well bring vaccines to schools.
Yes.
So that the teachers maybe who did get vaccines when they were in their homes, they can as well be vaccinated well at school. The same may also happen to some students who have not been vaccinated home. They can as well get vaccines at schools.
And isn't there planned vaccination drives as kids go back to school? Teachers and parents alike? Are they going to be vaccinated in the schools as they go back to schools?
Well, that program I think has not been yet there. Now through us, UNSA, we are advocating for it. We are requesting the Ministry of Health, please bring these vaccines to school. Bring them to school. Bring them to regional hospitals. Then the schools in the particular region go and collect these vaccines, take them to school, because I'm sure some of these schools have medical staff.
Yes, they do.
They will be in a position to give jabs to these students and some teachers.
And not looking at jabs only, also the testing kits as school remain open, yeah, for those who have symptoms of COVID-19. Will they have these testing kits in the schools, or will they have to go to government hospitals?
Currently, schools are struggling. I'm not sure whether they have these testing kits. However, there is a campaign we are running as UNSA of keeping schools open and safe.
Yes.
Because we don't want to have the experience of last time where they opened and they closed us. Now in this campaign, we are mobilizing over 1,000 medical students who have finished their home seated to be trained by the Ministry of Health on how to do COVID testing. there's this antigen testing.
Yes.
Which is a bit cheaper. Even me, the other time they taught me how to do it. I do law, but I can now test. So once they are taught how to do testing, they will be placed in schools to assist on. And now through this, the ministry is requested to give in the testing kits to these schools, because we are sure we have got people who are ready to do the COVID testing in schools, regular testing and rapid one, because we appreciate that one of the reasons as to why the other time we were locked, that we had schools who had which had cases of positive cases, but they did not come out to disclose these cases. They hid them, and as a result, the whole thing worsened. Now this time around, we said no, don't hide anything. If you suspect someone is having symptoms of COVID-19, isolate this person. Let's test this person. If he's found positive, let us isolate him.
Yeah.
He's treated aside. After, when he gets okay, comes back to school. Not again relying on 2, 3, 400 cases. You close the entire education sector. So it should be upon us, we the student and the students' leaders, the staff, the administration, to be on the forefront. This campaign is purely, we are volunteering. Because we see the government is a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It has this, it has this. So it's not good to come out and you criticize, but it's better you give in something that can as well assist. Can you give an alternative? Can you identify? So for us, we are ready to mobilize. We are ready to encourage our students observe SOAPs. We are ready to encourage our students take vaccines. We are ready to do whatever it takes as long as we are volunteering. Because what we want is, let us keep our schools open and safe. That's what we want as students leaders in this country.
Just before we went on the break, I was discussing with Sarah about the teachers' training and the hiked fees. Yeah.
Well, the issue of hiking fees, I personally don't really welcome this idea, because there are instances where some parents had paid some tuition, some school fees. 1 week, they closed. So what will happen to these children, parents who had paid some fees? And if you hike in the price now, suppose a parent is having more than 3 children and is paying quite a lot of money, then you go on and increase. Some of the parents may not afford, and as a result, students will have to drop out. So I would think the schools should not hike in the prices, because it is affecting us. We may not afford. Let us go slowly, because they should appreciate. COVID has affected the economy of every person. Most of us, we've been affected. Yes, even the schools have been affected, but I think this is not the right time to hike in the price. It will be better we first go by what has been there, the normal one. In the long run, the schools administrations can as well engage the parents. Present these reasons to the parents. Why do you think it is necessary to increase? And also hear the side of the parents. Because for you may only thinking of yourselves as schools, but don't think of the other side of the parents. Well, there are some schools, if you have reached that consensus with the parents, they will appreciate the situation. So it's okay. Instead of increasing, let's say, 200,000 shillings, we pray as a student, as the parents, at least increase 50,000 shillings because of ABCD. So I would wish the schools to have a roundtable discussions with the stakeholders. And
Yes.
the stakeholders, these are parents, students leaders in these particular schools, and even the other people who matter in this discussion.
But how forthcoming is the government on assisting with the maintaining of SOPs in the schools? Because the Ministry of Health did say that they're leaving the responsibility of parents to equip their children with, say, hand sanitizers and masks. So if the schools are also to just, it's the schools that are going to suffer in the long run. And the president said if the number in the ICUs increase, then he's going to have no choice but to close again. So if we're not getting any government aided assistance and school fees are not going to be hiked, how are we going to maintain the expense that is COVID-19, securing our children in the schools?
Well, I would think there are things the government should come in and at least give an a helping hand to the schools. For example, giving in the testing kits. The schools may not be in a position to afford these testing kits. There are things like sanitizers. At least a person can afford a sanitizer. 20,000 you can buy some sanitizer.
Not everybody
But
can afford.
numbers,
20,000 is too much, I think.
You know, at least the company that produces a sanitizer,
Yes.
they have categories of these
Sanitizers.
Yeah, there are those
Yeah.
which are a bit cheap, but still, the schools, there is a way they can minimize on this. Have some jerry cans in the schools. I've seen some schools already have implanted them. They have put water aside and soap and maybe some sanitizer somewhere. If you can't afford sanitizer, which is a bit expensive, water is not expensive. I'm sure every school has water. Let us go this local way, go these cheaper things to ensuring that this goes on well. But still, COVID-19 shouldn't only be left to schools or shouldn't only be left to government.
Yes.
It should be everyone's responsibility.
Yes.
You want the government to come and buy you a mask, a mask of 1,000? Even if you can as well get a cloth and make it your own, turn it into your own mask. So there are things I'm sure the government should come in and assist, like testing, doing that surveillance, isolating these ones who are seriously sick. But there are these, I think the school should as well take it on, having the isolation centers. This should purely the schools have a tent or leave one class to be for isolation center. But that these, I'm sure, it should be for the parents or the students. Cheaper things. Observing soaps, it should be your responsibility. Putting on masks, it should be your responsibility. Having some cheap sanitizers, it should be your responsibility. Washing the hands, because we have water in schools, it should be person's responsibility. So COVID should be looked at that way of all of us coming in, fighting. It's the only way we can manage this COVID-19, not leaving to one sector, that it should be the government to take it on.
Yes.
That is quite true, sir. Thank you so much for that insight. And you had it from Mr. Walunga Yusuf, who is the president of the Ugandan National Students Association, here on the Twitter Jabs too. And the topic of discussion today was schools reopening. And it seems to be a lot that still needs to be done. But I guess that we are going to learn on the job. But he's going to give you some parting words as we go.
Thank you very much. I have some requests to make. My first request goes to the President of the Republic of Uganda. We thank you, Excellency, for reopening us. However, you made the decision on borders at the time they're supposed to stop working at 7 p.m. We have students who are on evening programs. We have students who come from very far to come attend schools. I'm sure some of these students, most of them rely on border transportation.
Yes.
So we pray as students leaders in this country, rethink of this decision and adjust. Two, I request our female students who have become mothers in villages, and those boys who think they've got businesses, they have no any hope of getting back to school. You think you well of, please no. My sisters, come back to school. There is a very brighter future when you come back to school than being home suffering. Then finally, I request the Ministry of Works and Transport. The transportation companies have not reduced the charges despite the president said full board. They are still highly charging the population. And yet we are coming back to school. Imagine a student using 10,000 on a daily basis to come and study. So the minister, we are requested, please come in and step in, because they are quite challenging us as students. We may not afford to come up and give a serious directive to these transportation companies. Then finally, I thank everyone, and I thank the ministry, but still I request the Ministry of Health, bring vaccines to schools. My fellow students, go get vaccination.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Well, that was all we had on the Twitter Jabs Part 2 this morning, but do not go anywhere because we have quite a show lined up for you with Shivan up next. Don't blink.